Okay, everybody, I just want to document my first Box Mod E-Cig build, and it's my very first build. I didn't buy prefab, I'm doing it all custom. I'm a DIY kind of guy. I love building stuff like this, and not to mention save some money. But I've tried the Ego type cigarettes, which are kind of like the blue cigarettes, the Ego 510s and CE4 models in particular, and they didn't have enough punch. I gave them an honest try for a couple of weeks, but they just didn't get the job done. So some of my buddies started having these things called box mods, which I had no idea where that name came from or what it meant. And basically, they had these boxes that was all, like massive battery power firing these huge atomizers and blowing these huge clouds. So, of course, I had to start checking this out and seeing what that's all about, because several of my friends have totally gave up smoking analog cigarettes because of their box mods, giving them the type of throat hit and vapor production that resembles a cigarette. So I just want to document what I've got done so far. I've done quite a bit. I've squared the edges up. As you know, these Hammond cases, because they're cast aluminum, each of the four sides has about a 3-degree bevel to them, which they have to do it that way when they cast things to get it to release from the mold. So the first thing I did is squared everything up, and as you can see, the box mod does stand straight as a result of that. And so it's been sanded, and here's what we got. We got a Veritube 510 connector with a spring-loaded center pin, a DC coaxial jack on the top left right there, and stainless steel vandal-proof fire button. It's also a recessed mount so that it can't accidentally fire in your pocket. It requires some pressing in to get the button to fire. Now, right now, I don't have my screws in the case. The cover's just loose, and there's a reason for that, because there's nothing wired inside. As a matter of fact, none of these fittings are actually screwed in yet. They're just sitting in there. So I'm going to pop the top on this and discuss a little bit about what's going on inside here. So we've got the classic Keystone battery sled. Now, it's had to be grossly altered down here in this lower corner to clear that standoff, and also had to grossly alter this top edge up here. And there's not much material left, but it still seems plenty strong. But had to clear that top left corner out for the fire switch. Now, a lot of you probably wonder what the DC coax jack is for that was on the back. I'm an RC guy, and so I've got, of course, I've got high current, high amperage LiPo chargers, and the wall wart chargers that people are so commonly using to charge their 18650 batteries, they just take too long. The average wall wart charger on these types of batteries can easily take 6 hours to charge them. These are Samsung 25R batteries. These things, each battery is capable of 20 amp of output continuous, which is a pretty hot 18650 cell. That's cranking. But they also have a high charge rate. Each cell can take 1¼ amp of charge. Well, since I'm running these batteries in parallel in this box mod, that means I'm doubling their capacity but keeping the voltage the same. So with both of them in parallel, I can charge them at 2½ amp. At 2½ amp, they can be fully charged from dead to full charge in 2 hours. So I put the DC coax jack in there as a pass-through so that I can charge the batteries in the box relatively quick without having to remove the batteries. I'm not going to use magnetic post on the magnetic back mod. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to use screws, because most of the time I feel like with a 2-hour charge time to bring these things up from full dead to full charge, I think 2 hours is great. Plus my RC charger, the way it works, it does all the sensing of the voltage and knows when to shut off, and it knows not to overcharge them. So I'm going to let the charger do the smart work of maintaining the batteries. But even at a 2½ amp charge rate coming from an RC charger, with this wired in the way I'm going to do it, I'll actually be able to, it'll be what some consider to be a pass-through system. I'll be able to actually vape on this while the batteries are charging with an RC charger. And because of the location of the jack, it's in such a location that it won't interfere with using the mod. You know, you won't even know that that jack is there, the way that they're normally held. So that's cool. But yeah, here's the battery tray. Like I say, it had to be grossly altered. A lot of material removed. It was quite a bit more material had to be removed than what it looked like I'd seen in videos. Maybe it's because I used a 1590G box, which is definitely, you can't go no smaller than that and get everything in there. And I've actually made life a little bit harder on myself because of this DC coax jack that I've added. Because the final wiring, I am going to, of course, use the classic N-channel Mosfet with a 340 amp rating at 90 volt. And the resistor, so I'm going to use the Mosfet as a switch bypass, so that way this switch isn't carrying high current loads to fire the atomizer. All that switch will be used for is to send a low milliamp signal to the Mosfet and tell the Mosfet to pass that power from the 18650s. It'll be mounted in the battery sled to the atomizer. Now also these little fuses right here, I think those are a great idea. Those fuses are 15 amps each, and each fuse will go onto each cell. So when the cells are wired in parallel, it doubles the amperage, or doubles the milliamp of the cell while keeping the voltage the same. But also because they're in parallel with a fuse on each cell, then that will make a total of a 30 amp load on these fuses. And these fuses are self-resetting, so if they ever trigger and go open in the circuit from an overload, you give them a couple minutes and they will cool down and reset themselves and be good to go again. So yeah, so this box is going to be fully fused, MOSFET driven to ease the load on the nice switch right here. And that's what we got going on so far. So I just want to shoot this little video of the build at this stage. And because the wiring is going to be so tight inside the enclosure, I'm going to use a high strand count silicone insulated wire. It's just a lot more flexible and easier to work with in tight areas. So that's what's going to be used on this. So yeah, so this is the bulk of what the mod's going to look like here. And you know, basically going for the metallic look. I'm probably going to polish that case up and call that good. I'm probably not going to get fancy with paint. I just want it to be functional and practical. I wasn't after blingy lights and digital readouts and stuff like that. But the cool thing about this DC coax jack right here, not only can I charge with it, but I can also plug in a voltmeter. I can have a little voltmeter in my pocket that just simply plugs in and sticks out the side. So there's my digital readout for volts if I want to see where I'm at. I can also use a special USB board that would plug into that and actually give me a 5-volt regulated output to charge USB items like cell phones and iPads and things like that. So I'll be able to actually use the internal batteries in this box mod as a portable USB power bank. So it will this DC jack definitely adds some unique functionality to it. And I haven't seen anybody do that, so you know, I think it's cool. So I got some accessory options. I got high charging rate at 2.5 amp to charge the batteries in the box quick. I've got an auxiliary voltmeter that can be plugged into it to see where the volts are at, and I can plug the USB adapter into it, which will give me a regulated 5-volt output to charge things. So yeah, 3 functions out of that one DC jack being put in there. So that's what's up, and I just wanted to document where I'm at this point.